In this lesson, we're going to discuss how to reuse geometry. Alright, now it may be beneficial for us to reuse some geometry instead of trying to remodel a specific object or something like that. There are always going to be different situations. Remember, whenever modeling anything, you could start right from scratch, you could reuse geometry, you could use all kinds of different techniques and different combinations of techniques to create the same result. So I'm just kind of giving you an idea of how we could reuse some geometry to create new models. So looking at this, we have our medkit box that we've created, and we've just created basically the frame for that. But now what we want to do is we want to create some glass, and maybe even some broken glass from that. So what I can do is extract some geometry from this object. Now, a way that I like to do this is I like to come in and select something like the border. And this is basically that open space around the back side here. And with that border selected, I can actually come down here and hit Create Shape. And what that's going to do is create an actual shape object from that edge selection or that border that we had selected. So this is a brand new object that we're able to model with and work with. So I can actually pull this out and you can see that shape there. So with this shape, you'll notice it's an editable spline. And if I want to create geometry from it, I could use the extrude modifier, or I could even just convert it over to editable poly. And by doing so, it's going to create a single polygon or an n-gon out of this shape here. Now, if you're still unclear on what an n-gon is, that's basically a polygon with more than 4 sides. So we have triangles, quads, and then n-gons. Alright, so if I look at this, you'll notice that I have several vertices along this line here. And sometimes whenever you reuse geometry, it's possible that you'll have to clean some things up. So I'll have to come in here and select these vertices along the bottoms of this polygon and even along the side. So I'll select these, holding down Control using marquee select, and then I'm going to hit backspace, and that's going to remove those vertices. Now you'll also notice that I have a pretty good concentration of vertices right here along the edges, and we'll have to get rid of those as well. And sometimes just cleaning up geometry is all part of this process. So we'll just come in here and we'll just start to get rid of some of these. Okay, and once we've gotten all of those selected, we can just simply hit backspace to remove those. And you'll see that that cleans up pretty well. Okay, I can come in here and do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and select one of these vertices and hit Z to frame in on that, just so I can get a closer look. And hold Control and just use marquee selection to select around certain vertices. Okay, and this makes things a little bit easier. So backspace to get rid of that. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to come over here and select all of these. And I'm just leaving one on those corners. Okay, we'll come up into here and we'll select all of those. And then we'll leave that final one. We'll just hit backspace there. And then one last section. Okay. So select all of those. Yeah, one more and then backspace. Okay. So we've cleaned that up. And once we have this clean, we can come in here and we could just keep this as glass. Okay, so we could actually apply like a shell modifier or just leave it the way it is and apply a material. Now, if you were going to use like a glass material, you do need a little bit of thickness on this, so you could use that shell modifier to do so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and apply the shell modifier, and I'm going to call this unbroken underscore glass. Okay, and then I'm going to create a copy of that, so I'm going to hold down Shift, drag that out. Just make that a copy, and I'm going to delete that shell off of there. and we're going to call this broken glass. So again, we're trying to stick with our naming conventions. See, so we have broken glass, and then on the broken glass I could actually come in here with my cut tool and start to just cut out some shapes for my glass. So I could come up here and we'll just start to cut out just some shapes of broken glass. Okay, you don't have to be perfect or anything like that. And you don't necessarily even have to put a whole lot of vertices into this. Okay. And I'm going to just go ahead and end right here. And then I'm going to do another shard up here at the top, kind of like so. Okay. And then if you want, you can come in and move these vertices around. You can reshape this however you see fit. And then once we're finished, we can get rid of one of these polygons here. And then that's still together, and then we can add a shell modifier to this to give it some thickness again. Okay, so we have our unbroken glass, which we can hide. So right click and hide selection, and then we can put in our broken glass and put that into position there. Okay, change that color there so it's kind of that black outline. And there we go. So that's just one way to reuse geometry. Another way that we can reuse geometry is by simply selecting an object, and we could go into something like polygon mode, and you could select specific polygons, and you could hold down shift and drag those out, and that's cloning part of the mesh. So we've seen this in use before. All right. So again, you can call this something like door underscore frame underscore corner cap, or something like that. And then you could come in and you could just start to reshape this. Now normally whenever you are creating new geometry from a mesh, notice where the pivot point is located. Whenever you create a new mesh this way, it's a good idea to go ahead and go to your hierarchy panel, effect pivot only, and then center to object. Okay, just to get that back into position. The glass really seemed to just work out on its own. If we want, we could go ahead and we could do the same thing, center it on that object. Okay, so you could come in and you could take this piece of geometry and you could really start to shape it however you see fit. I could come in and go to my front view. If I hit F3, I can see my object, and I could go ahead and hold shift and start to extract out some geometry. So if I select this and pull that straight up, okay, I can pull this down. Okay, and really just start to create something new, and come in and just really rework the shape altogether. Let's hit F3 so we can see what it's doing here. And I could take something like this and I could add a cap, or I'm sorry, a shell. Give that some thickness. Okay, and we've created a new piece of geometry. Now obviously there's not enough time to work this out or anything like that, but I just wanted to show you another way that we could reuse some geometry here. All right, so now that we've talked about how to reuse geometry, in our next lesson we're going to start talking about how to create things like pipes and wires, and just show you a really quick method for doing something like that. All right, so I'll see you then.